Welcome to Stories from the Center of the Universe, the podcast about the human experience.
David Thomason, welcome to the Center of the Universe.
Well, thanks, Paul. It's great to be here. I really appreciate the invitation to join you and talk for a little while.
Yeah, we just had a nice long chat before we got started.
And then you turn the mic on.
It was all probably better stuff that we're going to record right now.
I don't know. Let's see what we can do.
I have to mention we connected through Rick Jeffrey.
Yeah.
You became the president and CEO of Special Olympics of Virginia in 2022 after Rick's really long tenure.
Yeah, Rick had been president for 22 years before I became president in July of 22. And he'd been with the organization for 36 years. So,
wow.
You know, a long tenure there. But he's now enjoying retirement, and I'm enjoying being president of Special Olympics. It's a great organization that I've loved for a long time. I'm in my 37th year. So we have a lot of tenure on our staff, which is a great thing. So yeah, I'm really honored to be president of that organization that I've been with for so long and learned so much from.
Yeah, I can't imagine the things you've seen and learned in those 37 years.
So many things, and the people I've met, that teach me something every time I'm with them. I as we were talking a little while ago, I've had the great opportunity working with certainly all of our athletes in Virginia are rock stars. I've also had the chance to work with some of our global programs, and so to see what Special Olympics does here and be part of that, and then also see what's happening in other parts of the world, and we can learn from what other programs are doing. We can be grateful for what we have sometimes, and can grow in good ways. So I really am fortunate, and we have the best team. Our board, we have 3 young professional boards, and they just really help us lead in new and innovative ways. Our staff, we have a statewide staff of just over 40 people. And we have so many volunteers who every day give their time, give their effort to make our programs better for athletes, for our 21,000 athletes across the state with intellectual disabilities and those who work with them. I don't know whether you know what we call something called unified sports is something we do. Because we're all about building relationships through sport. We're about building self-confidence through sport. Of course, many of the lessons you learn. But for us, when we say unified, it's a team of people with and without intellectual disabilities. So anybody can be on a team. And this can be a basketball team. It can be a soccer team. It can be a leadership team. It can be lots of ways just working together in a way that, you build on each other's capabilities. You support each other through any challenges you have, and then you celebrate at the end like any other team. But when we do it with people of all abilities, there are a lot of things that we learn about what their abilities really are versus what they really are not. People think so much of the disability.
Right.
And then we learn a lot about ourselves. Special Olympics is about many things, one of which is really about the possibilities in people. So many times our Special Olympics athletes are told that it's not possible for you to graduate high school or get a job or live on your own or get a driver's license or graduate from college. Often I smile because our athletes go, really, watch me, right? They do it.
Yeah.
And then they say, watch me, but then also follow me because you got some lessons to learn about what we can do, what we as athletes can do, and what you can do in your own life. So it's a great place to be. I mean, it's just a great organization, great group of people who just want the best for others. And who want us to accept others, respect others, include others, and not only just tolerate others, but actually include and learn from, and create an environment where everybody can bring their A game, wherever whatever that game is, whether it's on a court, in a pool, on a field, in the workplace, at school. We part of what we do, and I mentioned Unified Champion School is when we go into schools, and we are just, at this point, we're reaching about 500,000 students in the state with this program, which is remarkable, and I'm so excited about. But this gives those schools the opportunity for all of their students to work together, all of their students to get to know each other, all of their students to overcome the fear of difference, frankly. Special Olympics is about overcoming the fear of difference of ability and disability, specifically intellectual disability. But our overarching goal is to create a place where particularly students, because that's when we all learn the most, in those formidable years. But students in middle schools and high schools, to learn that I don't need to be afraid of that difference. In fact, I could really benefit from understanding more about it, benefit about understanding who that person is, what that person brings to the table, what they can teach me, but also understand about me and maybe ways that I can be a better person too. So, I'll talk about it and do it as long as I can because I love it. And obviously 37 years is a long time, but we're still going. So.
Well, 37 years is a long time. And I did something I usually don't do. I actually looked you up and learned a little bit about you. I typically will just come in cold, frankly, and just explore through conversation. But I know you were at the American Heart Association. You actually know my mom, apparently, from that we discovered earlier. And you were with Peace Corps in Morocco.
Right.
That is an adult life of giving, of caring, of support, being empathetic. I imagine you were like that in your formative years, too.
I think so. I mean, my parents were wonderful role models in that way. In fact, the way I got connected to all of these nonprofits started with the death of my father. I mean, my father died when I was 20 years old and in college. But throughout let me back up a little bit. Throughout my life, my parents were tremendous role models about giving back. We never had, a lot, but we did always know that we could give of ourselves. We could give many ways that didn't involve a financial gift of any kind, right? And so they taught that lesson many, many, many ways. And so when my father passed away when I was in college of a heart attack, cardiovascular disease is prominent in my family. I wanted to do a benefit ride in his memory, and so I reached out to the American Heart Association, told them I wanted to do this. I was a kid, 20 years old, and talked to a lot of his friends about supporting this ride. And a friend of mine and I rode on we rode our bicycles from Newport, Rhode Island, all the way up into Maine, about 1,200 miles or so, and raised, not a lot of cash. But then I learned that it felt really good to try to make a difference. It felt really good to connect that community, the community of my father's friends and my mom's friends and my friends who wanted to support that. So then I went to the Peace Corps. I met the people at the American Heart Association, our heart association that I'd worked with for the ride. Went to the Peace Corps, and when I came back in, I was still friends with the friends at the people at Heart Association. And so I called her, my friend Linda, and I said, "Linda, what's up?" She said, "Well, welcome back. And by the way, we have an open position. Are you interested?" And I went, "Oh, yeah. I mean, I'd love to do that," because it felt good to have done it before. And honestly, that really set me on that path of nonprofit work. I was with the Heart Association for a few years. And then loved the work that we were doing, and that's when I met your mom and did some work up here in Ashland and in this region of the state, helping to raise awareness and raise funds, again, through community building. Of course, what I did in the Peace Corps was community building around our similarities and sort of connecting on commonalities and then being enriched by the differences, but connecting on the commonalities first. So Heart Association was great. When I came back into town, I worked for them, and then literally I was out for a bike ride because I cycled a lot. I cycled through New Zealand and parts of Australia and New England, and I was out one Saturday training for a ride across the U.S. And I'd gone out Route 6, 40, 50 miles, and was coming back in, and my route took me right by the University of Richmond, and I saw this sign. It said, "Special Olympics, stop in." I needed to refill my water bottle, like, sure, I'll go see, what the heck, what do I have to lose?
This is 87.
87. Yeah. I stopped in, and what I saw, Paul, were two distinctly different groups of people, if you will. One group of people had disabilities, and I knew nothing about people with disabilities at that time. I could see that, maybe, they communicated differently, maybe they acted maybe slightly differently, maybe whatever. And then I saw this other group of people who totally connected with those with disabilities. And there's some magic surrounding that, right? Mm. These people of differences, and I'd seen it in the Peace Corps, how you can connect, not in spite of being different, but sometimes because they're different. And so I just saw this magic and said, that's kind of cool. And so instead of just stopping and filling up my water bottle, I stuck around, I volunteered, and I haven't left yet.
What is it about you that caused you to stay, you think?
Well, that feeling. I mean, I thought that it was very cool to see that human connection, right?
Yeah.
I think your interest is, you talk about the human experience.
Yeah.
It's nothing more human than seeing people connect in that way. And these were parents and coaches and volunteers with our athletes, again, back in '87. And then literally, this was back in the day of printed want ads, and I saw one in the paper, and I said, what the heck? Let me go talk to him. Rick Jeffrey was one of the people who interviewed me. I took his position then, and I took his position a couple of years ago now.
Did you do that more than twice?
Let's see. I haven't thought about it that way. I don't think so. I've done multiple positions at Special Olympics, obviously, over the time, and intentionally so. I wanted to learn about what we do with sports and what we do with coach education, what we do with our educational piece, and what we do with events, and what we do with fundraising, and what we do with athlete leadership, and all of those components. So I intentionally sought those opportunities out. But at that time, I came in as a region director, just kind of working the program on a local level, through a region of the state, and just never have looked back. It's been a great ride so far, and to be able to lead in this way now is such an honor. I get to see what I've just described over and over and over again.
Is it a daily thing?
Pretty much. Yeah. Because we're really fortunate. I hear from our athletes all the time, and they talk, they call or email or message some way and tell me about something they've done and celebrate, that they've bettered their time on the track, or they won a softball game, or they got a job, or the successes that we didn't create, but we know we have a little piece in that, because Special Olympics, there was a slogan that we used to use that I still love. It's Special Olympics is training for life, right? So throughout life and for all the components of life. And so when I hear from our athletes, or a parent, or a volunteer, or a staff member, or a board member, or a young professional board member, all of the people who are involved with this, about one of the successes that we've been part of, it's pretty much every day.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing,
You're living an amazing life, right?
I love it. And it's not without challenge, of course. It's not all rose-tinted glasses. We're a business. We have to run a business, and we have all the challenges that come with that, but also all the opportunities that come with that. And the end product is something that just really matters to me. To open people's eyes and hearts to accepting others, period. Whatever differences we have, but connecting again on those commonalities. I'll do that until I can't.
Yeah. Good for you.
Yeah. Well, it's I'm fortunate, and it's not a career I'd suggest anyone going into to make a lot of money. Nonprofit management. Many of my contemporaries from college have retired. Already a long time ago, and are quite wealthy and all of that. I contend that I'm very wealthy too. I just don't have any money, and I'm okay with that.
And you are.
Yeah, I feel that I am. And
you're wealthier than I dare say 99% of humanity.
I feel very fortunate, and fortunately, those friends with a lot of financial wealth are very generous in sharing their places and their homes and their So I'm fortunate in so many ways.
Yeah, right on. All right, so let's talk about you as a kid. What were you like as a kid? What were you into? What were your hobbies and likes?
Well, I'm the youngest of 7.
Wow.
Yeah, and my siblings, although I'm not sure I believe them, my siblings tell me I was spoiled. I can't imagine it, but I promise.
The youngest of 7, probably.
Well, yeah, so I one of my brothers passed away before I was born, and another has passed away since. So there are 5 of us now. I was probably a little bit of a brainiac. I liked, from a sports perspective, I enjoyed basketball. I've never been a huge basketball player, but I play in rec leagues and that kind of thing. And I've always enjoyed cycling. I was serious about it at one point. I still love to ride. I was a musical. I did a lot of stuff with music. So I studied music
at an early age.
Yeah. Starting at 9. I started learning music at 9, and that's always been a big part of what I've done. But and before we started recording, I told you that I love what sports brings to us. Those lessons of life. I was actually interviewing someone just this morning, and he said that I said, so why are you interested in getting involved with Special Olympics? And he said, well, sports teaches you all the lessons you need throughout life, and I believe that's true. The teamwork and the setting goals and reaching them, and pushing yourself, and learning what makes it work, and all of those lessons. And so I lived in this community over. It was in Chesterfield, and then became through annexation became Richmond, and had some neighborhood friends, and we would just hang out all the time. And it was back then. I was born in the '60s. It was that time when your mom's like, and your dad's like, okay, see you tonight at dinner, and you just leave and you go and ride my bike through the neighborhood.
We were so lucky.
Go hang out. It was amazing.
So lucky.
Yeah, and friends throughout the neighborhood, and we would do all the stuff that kids do. I think my siblings would say that I'm different than they are in some of my perspectives in life, and that's okay. With 7 people, you're going to have a variety of life experiences and perspectives, but we are still very close. We do, to this day, we do something I call sibling brunch bunch. With our families, we have a birthday pretty much in every month, close enough that we get together one Sunday a month. And
on average, it's less than every 2 months there should be a birthday.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But we include, parents and, an extended family, I guess. And we're still very close. We still do that. And it's great. We just siblings, not spouses, not kids. We just get together and we talk for too long for the restaurant's sake. We tip well, so but I really love them. And, it's all, I came up, as I said, my family was a loving, close family. My brothers were, into sports. My sisters were into sports. We did, the church league and the school league and the, maybe the community league, named the sport. Yeah. I had a really good life. I mean, a really good childhood, and actually a really good life throughout. But in childhood, I just remember going, and, we were not far from some woods, and we'd go and play in the woods. And I especially loved, my father grew up on a farm. He grew up down in near South Hill, Virginia, a little town called Union Level. So he had that in his blood. And my mom grew up in Richmond, but also had connections in North Carolina with her family who were in more rural and farm settings. So my mom and dad owned a hardware store. And I used to go and hang out up at the hardware store, Thomason and Company Hardware, over on Southside Richmond. And it was just a cool place. I mean, as a kid especially, there's a lot to learn in hardware stores too. Like, to figure out the right tool matters. Having a variety of things to access to solve a problem is really important. There's a community there too. My dad and the people who worked with us, and my aunt worked there, and my mom was up there. And it was just a cool place to go and hang out. It kind of, I think, instilled in me the importance of that family, the importance of those values. My mom and dad were both very hard workers and very honest, and their ethics were so deep, and that I think all of my siblings and I got that lesson daily. So it's fun to go up, hang out at the hardware store, explore there. I love hardware stores to this day. It's just a cool place to go.
If my wife would let me, I'd spend an afternoon in a hardware store.
Yeah, it's hard not to. Yeah. And this was a cool one of those. It wasn't a big box. Obviously, it was a small little. It wasn't so small, but a family-owned business. And we would do inventory every year, and had those things that you have to do when you're on a business. It was a family effort, and then. Once they sold that business, because he grew up on a farm, and after he retired, he also had a construction company. But after he retired, quote unquote, they decided to buy a 150-acre farm up in Cumberland County. And for retirement, he went up there, and so I was driving a tractor when I was very young, and dump trucks and on the farm and baling hay and learning those lessons. Which,
looking back at those times, you probably have very fond memories, but that's hard work.
Yes and yes. I mean, hard work, but it was time with my dad, which mattered a lot. It was really important to him. It was a piece of him that he shared through experience, right? This was part of me when I was growing up. Now, we didn't live on the farm. We did have someone was living on the farm, but he would drive up there multiple times a week, and I would go up there in the summers. I'd go up there many times. School years, during the school year, I'd go up on the weekends whenever he did that. But those were some great insights to who he was and what mattered to him, and who my mom was and what mattered to her. And he fought in World War II. That was another piece of who he was that he didn't talk about much. So I don't know. I know some things, but he was very quiet about his experience there. But that told me a lot too. That he was so quiet about.
Do you know his story at all in World War II?
Not much of it. He was in Italy. I know that, and he was in some active combat situations, which I think really, of course, impacted him. I don't know much, and I didn't ask too many questions. It didn't seem like the right thing to do. And I've heard some stories. I've seen some pictures, of course. What I do know is that he served proudly. He served out of commitment to serving his country, and it really mattered to him to do that. Yeah. But that was a long time ago.
There's still some World War II vets out there, but that crowd is.
Yeah, well, he was born in 1916, so I mean, and my mom was born in 1919. So it was interesting, and so they were older parents when I came along.
Well, you're number 7.
I'm number 7. I'm sure I was I asked my mom once, and and she said, "Well, you're a special blessing." I'm like, "Okay, got it figured out." We were involved in a church, and for years that was part of our life growing up. And I would play church sports, and there's always a basketball league there and a softball league there, and so it's always, those things have always been part of what I've done. There are a lot of things that now I'm thinking about that I haven't thought about for a long time. So you're doing your job well. You're bringing out some
Thank you.
some memories that I really thought about for a long time.
So you had a fairly varied love of cycling and music and nonprofits into your early adulthood and throughout your adult life. I'm going to go with cycling for a minute. Yeah. And I have to ask, the American Heart Association event, the bike ride that you did, started in Providence, ended somewhere in Maine. You were here in Virginia living at the time, right? Why that ride?
Great connection, yeah. And I also played volleyball in college, by the way. It was a club team. That was another sport that I really enjoyed. But the bike ride. So I've a college friend, Terry Moore, is a sailor and was a sailor then. He did a semester at sea and just fell in love with that. And so after college, he was crewing on this 120-foot schooner off Long Island, up in Montauk, Long Island. And then they sailed from there up to Providence to see the America's Cup. He said, "David, why don't you come up, bring your bike, crew with me for a little bit, and then we'll take off from there." So we were on that schooner for a while. What was it called? The Appledore. Really cool. We take day cruises out. I'd never crewed on a ship. We'd sailed some, but I'd never really done that much of it. And then we had our bikes. We'd do some training rides when we weren't working, just to kind of get ourselves in shape. And we had panniers, so we were loaded down with all the stuff. We were self-contained. And then we got off the boat in Providence and rode up to see a friend in a little town, Palermo, Maine, who was a friend of Terry's that I didn't really know, my friend Terry. I didn't really know him, but that's why we did that route. I've always wanted to ride that part of the country, and it was the timing was such that I wanted to do it in memory of my father. So that's how that happened, and that's the same friend that I rode through New Zealand with, by the way. And he's still up in Maine. I go see him and do some cycling up there. I need to get back at it more because I've let myself slide, but I still love it. I love to get on a bike.
What do you love about it?
There's just a cadence that I get into when I'm riding, and it just feels, it just, again, having that goal of I want to ride 50 miles or 60 miles or 10 miles or whatever it is. I love being outdoors. I love it, and just immensely love being outside and just feeling all of that. I love the solitude of it sometimes. That's an important part of me. Certainly love the fitness of it, and I was in a horrific bike accident, so I had to get back in that saddle literally, but I still love all the pieces that it brings to just kind of get. And I have fond memories of it, because I've seen some of the most beautiful places in the world from my bicycle seat. And when you're on your bike versus in a car or in a bus or even walking, is a different experience.
Every sense is engaged, right?
Every sense is engaged. People look at you differently, usually in good ways. One experience on this bike ride up to Maine, I laugh about this all the time. Typically, our pattern was we'd try to get in 70 or 80 miles a day or something like that, depending on terrain, depending on where we were trying to go and all those things. And close to the end of that mileage, and as it was starting to get dark, we would stop somewhere. We'd say, hey, is there a camping site somewhere? Because we had tents with us and all this stuff. Or somewhere we could camp, and we would stock up on food for the night, and then we'd ride to the place and do, finish the night there. Well, we were up in this little place called Little Patton Pond, Maine. And, before we got there, we stopped at the store, and we said, hey, is there anywhere close by? Yeah, about 3 miles up that way, there's this place. And we said, perfect, loaded up. We cycled, and we cycled, and we cycled, and went miles and miles and nothing around, nothing at all, So we either misheard or took a wrong turn or something. So we finally found this fire road. We're like, perfect. We'll just pull over here. Nobody will care. We'll pull over this fire road. So we get there. We set up camp. We're beginning to cook dinner, and this car comes down the road, and this woman rolls down her, is a Volvo, and she rolls down her window and says, hello, how are you? And we said, great. How are you doing? And she said, great. This is my driveway.
That looks like a fire road.
Looked like a fire road. She was the nicest. She said, stay, no worries at all. By the way, come up to the house tomorrow morning. I'll fix you some breakfast. We stayed in touch with her, afterwards. So those kind of experiences are part of what I like about touring on a bike. Touring on a bike is very different than racing. I've never raced. It's always touring and just riding for fitness and for fun. And, again, when I was training, 6 weeks after I got hired my Special Olympics, in fact, I was out training on Patterson Avenue with a friend. We were going to ride across the U.S. We went out Route 6 and early morning, September 24th, to be precise. And we were coming back in. And that time of year, Patterson does a lot of wavy up and down hills. And, so you see people, you don't see people. And it's very, directly into the sunrise.
Yep.
It was early morning. Well, this truck was doing 65 miles an hour and didn't see us and nailed us.
You were hit by a truck going 65?
A pickup truck, to be clear, yes.
But still.
Yeah. And not something I'd recommend, except that there are a lot of lessons there too, right? I learned a lot from that experience. Gratefulness for sure. I was so fortunate in many ways, one of which was that the 3 cars directly behind the truck that hit us stopped to help. One was a physical therapist, one was a surgeon, and one was an ER doc. And
are you kidding?
And I'm not. And I was in a ditch. I wasn't breathing because I had been contorted and broken leg, the stuff. They saved my life, no doubt.
There's no question. Yeah.
And so just the fortune of that and the grace of that, and being grateful for how that came about. Again, not recommending this at all.
Yeah.
But I think that in all of our experiences, we can learn something if we're open to it, and all of our experiences, we can be grateful for something if we're open to that too. So
the injuries, were they the result of the truck making contact, or was it both the truck making contact and then you making contact with the ground eventually?
I think the latter. However, I had a head injury as a result, and I don't remember most of it.
Yeah.
And it's hard to tell. My friend, I think he was drafting me at the time. We know he was drafting me at the time. He had more broken bones than I did, because I think he got hit first, and then I got hit. We were close enough that we both got hit. And I was tossed into the ditch, and my bike was destroyed and all that kind of stuff. But I have like a glimmer of a memory of that morning. But I was out for a little while, and again, fortunate that gave me a whole new understanding of those with with head injuries and those with with varying degrees of functionality in that way. So there's a lot there. But anyway, I love cycling to this day.
No. Do you mind sharing the injuries?
Dig all you want. I only had one broken bone. My leg got broken.
That's incredible. You only had one
broken
bone.
My friend had 7 broken bones, but didn't have a head injury. I think my head injury, thankfully, was minor as it goes. I was out for I think a little more than a day or so.
That's a long time.
It is, and when I say out, I mean not aware. Clinically, I'm not sure. To be honest with you.
Yeah.
But we had great neurology. I was taken to MCV. Wasn't medevac. Wasn't helivac, but I was rushed, and got great treatment there. So, and that, honestly, the frustration of the head injury, and because I lost some memory, and it used to be, and I'm not exaggerating, if you told me your phone number, I would remember your phone number. It would just stick, and next week, next month, I'd remember your phone number.
So you had an incredible memory.
I did, and so I had to work around that, and it didn't work that way anymore. And people are like, well, as you age, it doesn't, and it does. I get that, memory changes, but just this frustrating. I was pretty frustrated, and I had a chronic headache for a year and a half.
How old were you when this accident happened?
26.
Yeah.
And so, but there are lessons there too, and the support I got from Special Olympics specifically. I was on staff 6 weeks.
Wow.
And they allowed me to take the time that I needed to recover. Rick Jeffrey came and saw me in the hospital. It's funny. Because at that point, he was kind of my supervisor. Well, he was my supervisor. He came and checked in on me. And so, but then the whole team, the board, made sure that even though I hadn't earned leave, I could take the leave that I needed. And so, that certainly impacted me. The organization that cares for people in that way is a pretty good organization.
It's a great team to be a part of, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Cycling across the country takes how long?
Well, I never got across this country. I did New Zealand.
This was your first training?
I've never gone across this country. We were getting ready for it, but when after the accident, everything got shifted, of course.
All right. So September 24th of that year, when did you next get on a bike again?
I don't know the date. People are like, you're never going to ride again, are you? I'm like, yes, I am. I've choked on water before, but I'm still going to drink water.
Right.
And I'm going to live my life. And when I don't, I don't. But
because you don't want to be in fear.
I don't
of getting back on the bike.
I don't. So I've ridden a bunch since then. I don't know exactly when. Physically, I wasn't able to for a while, but I think certainly within the year, I was back on a bike. But I was limping around for a little while.
Yeah.
And I had some functionality things with just the processing and the brain, but so I don't know exactly when. But as soon as I don't remember being afraid to get back on a bike.
So it was never a mental thing. It was always physical health needed to be in order.
Yeah, I don't ever remember it being any sort of mental thing. Now, again, I think it was a blessing in its own way that I don't remember the actual accident. My brain blocked that out. I remember just before, and I remember a little while after. It's fuzzy, but I don't remember the actual timing of it because my brain.
You think your brain just said, "Hey, you don't need to remember this," or was it the concussion, or maybe a bit of the?
I think the concussion made that happen.
Yeah.
How that's designed, I don't know. But I think that it's really. I feel fortunate that I don't remember it. Maybe I would be fearful if I envisioned that or felt that or heard that or, But I get on my bike whenever I can.
Yeah,
I'm careful. Riding through New Zealand was pretty dicey. You riding through these mountains, they're not many. The roads aren't that wide, and they have these double semi trucks. There's like two trailers behind it.
Yeah.
Oh man, they scare you because they cut it close, and they're a lot bigger than you are.
And those double trailers are sometimes triple trailers, maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they just seem like they don't end.
But what a beautiful way to see that country too. So at the end of his Peace Corps term, my friend Terry, he was in the Peace Corps in Micronesia, and so he started a little bit later than I, and I flew down with both of our bikes. We met up in Auckland and then rode the North and South Island there.
Beautiful.
Oh my gosh, I want to go back.
Yeah.
And through Special Olympics, I've made friends there, and pretty much every country in the world, which is another amazing piece of what we do.
How many countries, by percentage, roughly participate in Special Olympics? We
have, at last count, just over 200 countries who have a program. I can't remember the exact number; it changes often.
Yeah.
But we're continuing to expand. Now we've strategically moved to parts of the world that maybe don't have much participation to host our World Games. So for a long time, all the World Games were hosted in the United States. But let me get this right, I think it was the 97 Winter Games, if I'm correct. We went to Schladming, Austria for our first out-of-country Winter Games. And then in my tenure, and not because of me, but I've been able to experience, we've moved to a lot of the games in Asia to grow that. We've been to Pyeongchang, South Korea, and Shanghai, and Nagano, Japan, We were in Berlin this past summer, and Athens and back in LA and all over the globe. And we're going to be heading to Italy next year for our Winter Games. We're taking one of our athletes to that, who has had his participation delayed because of COVID and because of all the changes there. So we're really excited for him that he'll be able to go and compete over in Italy. And then just recently we announced the 27 games. We alternate winter, summer like the other Olympics. So the 25 games will be in Turin, Italy, and then the 27 games will be in Santiago, Chile for summer. I love to travel. So I mean, I'm been fortunate to go to all of the games since '99, I guess it is.
So every 2 years you get to go to a really cool place.
Yeah, and see really cool people, and honestly, we were talking about family earlier. Reconnected with part of my family. I mean, people from Special Olympics movement have become family. Yeah. I was out in Seattle 2 weekends ago. I went out to Whidbey Island with friends that I worked with from Special Olympics. They didn't work in Virginia, but we're family, and we talked about how that works. It builds a bond because you're working towards such a good, commonly shared goal. It builds a bond like family, and so when I go to these World Games, it's great. I mean, I see my family, and they're from all over the place. And when you travel, you always get to see someone. I was in Norway last summer, and I reached out to a couple of my friends who are there that I know through Special Olympics. Hey, I'm going to be in Oslo. Would love to catch up, take you out to dinner. And one of them said, "Oh, come to Oslo, but you're coming to my house for dinner." And she hosted this amazing evening for us. A friend of mine was traveling with me, and we went, and they had shown us around Oslo. And one of the friends there works for the Olympic Training Center there in Oslo, so he gave us that tour. And one of the other friends is one of the athletes that I worked with there, and just had a great time there. So anywhere I go, I mean, there's usually a connection somewhere close by, which is great.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
in '87, was Special Olympics basically an American idea that was just in America for a while?
Well, in '87, it had gone past just the United States. I mean, it was started here by Eunice Kennedy Shriver, John F. Kennedy's sister. They had another sister, Rose, and who had intellectual disabilities. And Mrs. Shriver, all the Shrivers were very competitive and very driven. And in the early '60s, Mrs. Shriver, Eunice Kennedy Shriver, said, we're competitive. Sports has taken my family to a lot of places. It's taught us all the lessons that we need to learn. Those with disabilities, intellectual disabilities, deserve the same opportunity. That's how it started. And of course, JFK was president at that time, and Sergeant Shriver, who's Mrs. Shriver's husband, was also helping drive all of this. He founded the Peace Corps. He was first director of the Peace Corps. And I've had a chance to sit down and talk to Sergeant Shriver, which is unbelievable. I mean, just for hours, because they'd have events at their house, and we were at the White House one time at an event, and hey, Sergeant's like, "Hey, let's chat." And he was a remarkable man, and she was a remarkable woman. But I digress.
Clearly, yeah.
So it started then. The first World Games were held in '68 in Soldier Field in Chicago.
Okay.
In fact, we were out there for the 50th anniversary. It was cool to go back there and be part of that. But we've, the movement has been continually trying to expand past the United States. The games were always held here until the games out in Schladming. But the program, and it's still quite U.S. based from a funding standpoint, though we are really trying to work on expanding how that works as well. But we're in just over 200 countries, so we're all over the place.
We're going to talk more about Special Olympics here in a second. Yep. You started learning and playing music at the age of 9. So you can read music, I imagine.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And do you write?
I have written, but I really play more. I mean, I've for a long time I was a church pianist and organist, and I've studied jazz, and I make money playing music now once in a while. Yeah. So I read a lot of stuff. I can play by ear a little bit. I studied classical with the piano teacher that we had here, and then I studied some when I was at William & Mary, and then I studied with Russell Wilson, who's a well-known jazz pianist here in town, and a friend. So it's another place where I go to kind of get recentered. I bought a grand piano before I bought a car. I mean, kind of connected to it. and love it, but so I haven't really written much. It's not what I do.
Did your parents put you in front of a piano, or did you gravitate to it
So
on your own?
my sisters, were taking piano lessons, and I wanted to, but the piano teacher didn't take students until they were 9 years old. So I was the kid who you had to tell to stop practicing instead of start practicing. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's part of what I do.
I'm going to ask the question: what is it about playing the piano or music in general that does that to you?
Yeah. Well, music in general, I think, is again a universal language. Right? It can take, regardless of the words you utter, it can take you to new places, and the place it takes you might be different than the place it takes me, but it's transformational, and I think that's a really beautiful thing. And so that's what draws me to music. Playing, just there's something essential about just being able to sit down and make that sound happen,
Yeah.
and then bend it the way you want to bend it, and mold it the way you want to mold it. So I guess I do write, because even though I read notes, I rarely play exactly what's on the page.
Yeah.
I ad-lib quite a bit, but it's just, it just takes me to a place where, again, it just takes me to a very centered place, kind of resets the craziness in the day or the busyness of the day, and kind of recenters me. And I just really think that, there's a theme here. Obviously, I love to be able to find ways to connect with people, and it's one of the ways that I can communicate with people in a way that I enjoy.
And you always enjoyed being part of a band or a group when you played?
Yeah, I've been in some bands and groups, anything from, rock to jazz to chamber to, solo. And that's, that team, that ensemble is important. It's another form of a team.
Yeah,
honestly. Absolutely. You got to rely on each other. You got to listen to each other. You got to communicate. You got to adapt to. You've got to support. It's all that teamwork. So that's definitely part of it when I play in that kind of setting. But yeah.
The piano playing Russell Wilson has the misfortune of having the same name as the football player.
Yes, that's from collegiate.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, every time I say, I studied with Russell Wilson. You did? Well, different Russell Wilson.
Very different Russell Wilson. All right, I think I love, or at least appreciate, every form of music, with the exception of jazz. I've never understood jazz. Can you help me understand jazz?
Ooh. My first reaction is, if you don't get it, you're not going to get it.
Maybe never.
But its very nature is to be improvisational, of course, right? So a lot of people say, "Oh, I love that piece because it always sounds that way." Well, jazz doesn't always sound that way. Jazz does its thing,
right?
Which I love. It can be confusing because sometimes there's some dissonance, and sometimes you're really, where are you going with that progression? What are you doing with that line? Can I help you understand it?
It sounds like I'm hopeless, maybe.
Well, I hate to say that because I think there's always hope. Do you not enjoy it, or you just don't connect to it?
In fairness to jazz, I haven't tried jazz in a while.
Well, that would be it. And it is not for everyone. Opera is not for everybody. Classical is not for everybody. Rock's not for everything. You got to figure out what works for you. And I said earlier, it's transformative. It takes me to places, and I just kind of lean into it and let it do that, or kind of engage with it in a way that will do that. And there's no rule about what you like and what you don't. I think I can't do anything to help you if it doesn't do something for you. Listen to that.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. It just might not be your thing.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Have you ever met Bruce Hornsby? You went to William Mary. Yeah, you almost have to, right?
Well, I didn't meet him at William Mary. I met him because of Special Olympics.
Oh.
He did a benefit concert for us down at, I guess it's Carpenter Center now, years ago. He came and did a benefit concert for us. And I probably have met him in Williamsburg a couple of times because, William Mary down there, but I don't think so. I know the first time I met him was Special Olympics. And this would have been at least 25, 30 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, but he was a nice guy. Really easygoing guy, really sort of down to the earth guy, and just came in and did his thing and was happy to help us out. And of course, brilliant at the keys. And
I've never heard a bad word about the guy.
Yeah, I've not either. He seems to be a solid person throughout. I don't claim to know him. Obviously, I've just met him a couple times.
But lucky to met him a couple times.
No doubt. Again, Special Olympics, I've met a lot of people. One of my coolest moments was backstage in Dublin. One of my athletes was speaking, and this is a gentleman from Chesterfield County, Paul Moretti, was the first international global messenger we've had. I've been fortunate to mentor two, and Paul was the first one. And we were backstage, and he was on the flow of show to introduce Muhammad Ali. But Muhammad, at that point, Parkinson's was starting to do its thing, and so he wasn't able to be on stage. We still met Muhammad Ali a couple times. But Paul was going to introduce somebody else, and we were backstage, and John Bon Jovi was there. He was performing, and we're talking to him. And
you're saying this like you met Mr. Smith down the street.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
But
your life experience is what it is.
Well, and these are cool experiences. But the coolest part of that night for me, we're in Dublin, so Bono and U2 performed too, and Bono's standing back here, and then Nelson Mandela is on stage. And I'm standing here at Crow Stadium in Dublin, looking out at 70,000 people cheering on our athletes and cheering on the people on the stage, as Nelson Mandela and Bono walk out hand in hand.
Oh, man.
And I'm like, this is amazing, amazing. And from a musician standpoint, I met Stevie Wonder's a big fan of Special Olympics and performs often. We were in Shanghai for the games, and because I work with that really amazing group of athletes called International Global Messengers, I'm usually in the green room because that's where they are. They're part of the ceremony, which as it should be. And I'm in the background. I mean, it's not about me at all. I'm grateful that I'm in the room with them. We were in Shanghai, and Yo-Yo Ma, the cellist,
sure,
was performing with Turtle Island. And I had said in passing to one of the producers, I think he's just brilliant. And his approach to music, and how talented he is, and so I was there in the green room talking to my athlete. Okay, now when you go out, this is what you're going to do, and this is talk to me about how you feel, and just kind of coaching him and learning with him. And somebody tapped me on the shoulder, and I turn around, and it's Yo-Yo Ma. And he said, "What a pleasure to meet you." I'm like, we talked for 35 minutes about music and about why he was there and about why I was there, and so honored to have that conversation. People are like, "Did you take a selfie?" I don't, and I rarely take pictures because I think that changes the experience. The list, and I sound like a name dropper. I don't mean to be. The list is long.
For our listening audience, the vibe I'm picking up on is complete sincerity, and that you're not being a name dropper.
The list is long, but I think that when I meet someone, I'd rather have that actual interaction than the picture. I'd rather completely connect as much as you can in that moment,
right.
Than to have a picture that I can show off. I just think and honestly, whenever I'm having those conversations, if the camera comes out, it changes their experience. And if they ask, sure, we've done it. I'm not against it, but it's not the first thing I think about.
Yeah. Well, to be able to go from just a handshake and saying, "Nice to meet you, hope you're having a good day," to a 35-minute conversation where you're really connecting and sharing. Why would you want to bring a camera into that?
Right. And you're talking about the Sergeant Shriver conversation about
Shriver or Yo-Yo Ma.
Yeah, sure. And we were in the green room with Yo-Yo, so we had time.
Yeah.
Sergeant Shriver, again, he was the first director of Peace Corps. He blew my mind once. I had met him and been to his home a couple of times. And then at another event at the White House, I was just hanging with him. We were talking about the Peace Corps. And to have his perspective after having served in the Peace Corps was just unparalleled.
Yeah.
Such a gentleman. And he wrote a biography, or he had someone to write with him, but there's a biography about him. And we were invited to the book release. And again, I'd met Sergeant Shriver a few times. He was dealing with Alzheimer's. So I never expected he meets thousands of people. And so we go through the line. This is Paul Moretti, the athlete who I mentioned before, up in D.C. And he's sitting there signing books, and I walk up and he didn't ask. But he wrote in my book, "To David Thomason, thank you for your service in the Peace Corps of Morocco." Blew my mind. Now I don't, there's nobody there cueing him. And
right.
He was just he was an unbelievable human, and how he saw things and how he did things. And I mean, I can't imagine what it's like to marry into that family, right? I mean,
I'm just thinking about the couple themselves.
Yeah.
One is Special Olympics and one is Peace Corps, and they were there like, hey, not only do I have this idea or these two ideas, we're going to actually make it happen.
The determination. And Mrs. Shriver came to the Special Olympics Virginia Games a couple of times because we were close. The headquarters were up in D.C.
Yeah.
And they lived in Maryland. And she would come a couple of times and just we were fearful. Talk about fear. Because there was never enough that we could do for our athletes ever. I mean, and I mean, we're imperfect for sure, but she would just call you on everything and just always wanted the best for our athletes. And I admire that. And I admired her and admired Sargent as well. They led those organizations to make several pieces of our humanity better, and to give opportunity to other parts of humanity that maybe hadn't had those opportunities before. Whether it's Peace Corps and trying to build some bridges, of cultural understanding across the globe, and some mutual understanding about what we have in common and how we can build on that, or those with disabilities and how opportunities that had not been afforded could be through a program that's driven by sports, and sport is the vehicle, but it's also meant to change so much beyond sport. Whether it's the ability for our athletes to be seen as valuable coworkers or valuable classmates or valuable community members, or in any leadership opportunity like the rest of us, or as we mentioned before, to make sure that they have access to inclusive health in a way that helps them in ways that they need to do that.
Well, let's talk about that. I know there's an annual event where there's a lot of focus on that, but I imagine there's year-round support for those folks. Can you tell me a little bit about
our inclusive health?
Health, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, many people don't know this, nor should they have any way to, but Special Olympics globally is the world's largest healthcare provider for people with intellectual disabilities. And so our athletes are marginalized in several ways, and particularly in the healthcare space. They are 2 times more likely to have cardiovascular disease, 2 times more likely to have asthma, 2 times more likely to be more sedentary, 5 times more likely to have diabetes. And this is the one that always gets me. Their life expectancy is cut short by 16 to 20 years. And it's not always because they don't have access to healthcare. I mean, our Special Olympics is for those with intellectual disabilities, and intellectual disabilities impacts people of all socioeconomic backgrounds. So many of the families have complete access to the best care. However, most clinicians, most doctors, audiologists or dentists or optometrists or podiatrists have not had much training about treating those with intellectual disabilities. And so our program called Healthy Athletes, which is showcased at our summer games at the University of Richmond, on this year it'll be June 7 and 8. Healthy Athletes provides assessment and treatment in multiple disciplines. Athletes come in, get their eyes checked, and they walk away with a free pair of glasses. They come in, have a dental exam, and get invasive care, cavities filled, teeth pulled if needed, assessment, and some life-saving assessment. And we do that because we want to make sure our athletes have the same inclusive health care, the health care at the level that the rest of us can get, because it does save their life sometimes. It definitely changes their lives. And the clinicians are trained to better understand and work with our athletes. Often that's it. The communication might just need to be a little different. We might need to adjust how we say, instead of, is that a dull ache or a sharp pain? Sometimes our athletes can't identify that. Sometimes they can. I mean, our athletes are of all abilities as well. So maybe they adapt the vision chart. Maybe instead of letters, they're pictures of animals or fruits and vegetables, something that might be a little bit easier. Or maybe there's just a different way to communicate. Often, because of the lack of training of treating those with intellectual disabilities, there's too much pre-diagnosis as well. Doctors go, oh, they have Down syndrome. That must mean that they and they fill in the blank instead of doing an actual assessment.
Yeah.
This is no slight on the doctors or the clinicians. It's our shortcoming. They haven't been trained. So we're providing the training for the clinicians, and we're providing the care on site at the summer games, June 7 and 8 at University of Richmond. But also we do some satellite, some healthcare as well. And then we make sure that when the athletes go home, there are resources there for them to get that medical care.
I hate to follow that with a music question.
Go.
If your sisters hadn't played piano, you still would have gravitated to music, I imagine. Would it have been a different instrument, perhaps?
I can't imagine not having music in me and my life experience. It's that much a part of my fabric, sort of. And I mean, my grandparents gave my mom, my family, a piano, around that time. And I do play other instruments. I mean, piano's the one, but I dabble at guitar, and I played sax and the marching band in my high school. And, I play other instruments. Did organ at a church, and for quite a while I played organ there. I think I would have. Yeah, I can't imagine not having something like that in my life. Yeah.
All right. So the idea of you're going to keep doing this as long as you can do it means you enjoy every single day, even if it's a long trip halfway around the globe. The underpinning is you're living a great life, and you're getting so much from the athletes themselves.
It's important to me to make a difference, and I found a place where I feel like I am. I feel like I'm leading a group of people who are making a difference, and by so doing, I'm part of that difference. So I will continue to strive to make a positive difference. I haven't found another place that gives this to me in the same way that Special Olympics. Of course, I've been here 37 years. I haven't tried a lot of other places, but it brings together the possibility in people, the inspiration of overcoming challenges. Whether it's with our athletes or our program. It's fulfilling. It's very fulfilling. And when I say I'll do it until I can't, I mean, I do hope to someday retire. It's not right around the corner, but I will always be a champion of including everybody in a way that's meaningful for them, and is in a way that allows them to bring their best to whatever the table is, whatever the game is. That's what I mean by that.
Yeah. All right, coolest place you've ever been, whether it's with Special Olympics or otherwise.
That's not a fair question.
You got to give me one. I'll let you give me three if you want.
There's so many places. I mean, New Zealand has to be on that list. I cycled through that. It was before Special Olympics, but I really, really enjoyed New Zealand. Nagano, Japan was just cool. We were there in the winter. That was amazing. Greece was spectacular.
Yeah.
Peru was incredible. I mean, 2 weekends ago. I have a problem with superlatives. What's your favorite this? What's your favorite that? 2 weekends ago, I was out in Whidbey Island, and that's when the Northern Lights appeared, and I was in the right place to see it. That was magic.
I didn't know you could see it from there ever.
Well, you typically can't, but there was a solar storm while we were out there. In fact, you could see it here in Virginia. And I was already thinking, I'd love to go to Iceland and see the Northern Lights, and someday I'm going to go see the Northern Lights. And we didn't see it when we were in Scandinavia this past summer, but that was spectacular. So whenever someone asks me about a favorite, I quote one of our athletes.
This is great. I'm glad I walked into this one.
Yeah. There's an athlete named Lily Kuhn from New Kent. I'm sorry. And years ago, at our summer games and surrounding that, Disney came out and followed her and interviewed her and made a little a film about her. And one of my quotes that I just love her, and I can see her face right now. Often our athletes, ask, well, what sports do you play? And then, what's your favorite sport? And without hesitation and with a beaming smile and just this energy that exudes beyond description. What's your favorite sport? Lily says, my favorite sport is always the one I get to do next. My favorite place is always the one I get to go to next. I mean, it's a great way to see life, right? What's next? What's coming up? What can I do with this? And how can I experience it in a way that's meaningful?
And she came from a perfectly pure place.
Oh my gosh.
When she said that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's an athlete down in Florida named Chris Nikic, and he's remarkable in so many ways. He's done Ironman. He was like the first person with Down syndrome to run Ironman, and
Wow.
he's done multiples. And his motto is 1% better every day. You know, like, tomorrow, I did well today. Tomorrow I'm going to improve by 1% in some piece of what he does. And you know, there's so many examples that our athletes set. Whether it's the purity of, you know, my favorite fill in the blank is the one I get to do next, or the 1%, or you know, just the way that our athletes come from such pure places. Again, I've said it multiple times, and I'll probably say it a few more. There are lessons to be learned if you're just paying attention. And if you're not learning something, you clearly are not paying attention.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them. One of my favorite healthy athlete stories. There's an athlete that I'd worked with from Tanzania who was in that group of international global messengers, and he was a great track athlete. You know, silver medalist in all these competitions. He was great. He was running and working hard and improving, and he went through Healthy Athletes and got all the assessments, got a new pair of glasses, and I saw him about a year later and said, "So Johan, how's the track going?" He goes, "Man, it is so good." I mean, what's going on? He said, "I've won 5 gold medals this year." Yeah, I don't have to follow anyone anymore because I can see for myself.
Oh.
No one had identified that, right?
Oh.
Life-changing?
He never told anyone.
Never thought about it, didn't realize that glasses might help him. I mean, just none of that was put together. But talk about life-changing.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many things, and this is why I'll do it till I can't. I mean, I would love to say it's because I'm selfless and it's all about giving back. I get a lot from this, and anybody who's involved in Special Olympics, again, if you don't get a lot out of it, you're not paying attention, and there's some things you can do. There's so many benefits to what we do, what we get to do with and for our athletes and their families and the volunteers and the communities and our partners who support us. You know, I challenge people to come to one of our events and leave unchanged. It's just a lot going on, and it's all through sport. You know, that is the vehicle that we use. It drives our inclusive health. It drives our inclusive educational pieces that we do in schools. It drives our athletes finding employment and finding, you know, I was with an athlete. We did a interview on TV6 2 days ago, and she said, "Well, I drove myself here." I mean, I'm like, "Oh, cool. I didn't realize you had a license," you know. But again, too many times our athletes aren't given credit for what's possible for them. Too many people focus on the part of disability.
Right.
Changing that, again, I'll do till I can. So.
Yeah. International Global Messengers. Tell me more about that. I don't want to call it a program because it seems bigger than that.
Well, it's again, it was founded in honor of Sergeant Shrivers. It used to be called Sergeant Shriver International Global Messengers, SSIGMs, and since late 90s. At that point, 12 athletes were chosen from around the world to represent the entire global movement. Chosen, you know, from all continents to bring to the forefront what was happening across the globe for Special Olympics. And so we train athletes to hone their storytelling abilities, to find their voice first if they haven't, to determine what matters to them. And then to tell that story in a way to empower them for sure, but also to empower others through their story. Obviously I'm talking to a storyteller, right? So you understand the power of storytelling. So that's the International Global Messenger. We also do in Virginia Global Messengers. So we, you know, I don't even know how long ago I saw the power of this, and I didn't start it from a global perspective, but I've started it in Virginia. And we started doing the same thing here in Virginia. So we ask for athletes who are interested in doing this, and they work with a mentor. It's a team. It's an athlete mentor team, and we do some trainings to help them again find and share their voice. We give them some media training so that they are doing radio or TV interviews or whatever. They're a little more prepared for that, and then they spend, in our case, a 2-year term. Doing that across the state. But we say once a global messenger, always a global messenger. Even though we do classes of global messengers, we want that person, that athlete to continue to build their stories and their ability and the impact they have by telling them. So it is a global movement. Now they choose only 10 across the globe, and I was fortunate enough to be with them let's say 3 weeks ago up in DC for the the training of the group. Really, really incredibly fortunate that I've worked with that group since 2002 when I mentored the Paul Moretti, who I've mentioned a few times, and just have been able to stay connected with that part of it. I think that, and the athlete voice is what drives what I do every day. You know, I did an interview right after I was named president, and I was clear that what I hear from our athletes is what's more important than anything else. What matters to them, what they see as beneficial, what they see as opportunity. I want to listen to that, and I want to listen to it carefully.
It's great that you have that perspective, because that's the only perspective you should have.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's not always easy. It challenges some paradigms that we have. It challenges some, even after being with the movement as long as I have. Sometimes like, really, But I need and try to really listen fully. Our athletes have intellectual disabilities, but by no means there's a lot of wisdom in our athletes. And again, if we listen to and learn from them, we'll be better for it.
Yeah. How many are in Virginia? You said 10 internationally, but how many?
Yeah, our current class is, I think it's around 12. It varies depending on how many are interested, how many are available, because it's a commitment. It's a 2-year commitment.
Yeah.
But we've done multiple classes. So in the current classes, that I would say overall we have probably 60 or 70 who've done it before.
And many continue to be messengers after the 2-year stint?
Yeah. We find opportunities for them to speak to everyone who will listen to our message. And so we have a list of people who in the current class and former classes. And so if we get a request from somebody who would love to hear our story, if they ask me to come speak, I'm like, well, could I bring an athlete? Because I want at least to have them be part of what we present. As much as works out. I mean, I'd rather focus on them. So yeah, we have a cadre of global messengers now.
So if I brought my equipment to a place where you guys are, or whatever makes the most sense for you guys, we could talk to some of those athletes.
Absolutely,
and those messengers.
they'd gladly talk to you.
Yeah.
In fact, very recently we got a very generous gift from someone who wants us to elevate our storytelling. So we're going to get some equipment of our own and start doing sort of the
that's awesome,
the ESPN side, sort of a booth and
that's so cool.
Yeah, and there are lots of plans in place because our stories are great, they're transformational, and too few people hear them. And we have on our staff, we have some unbelievably talented people who are taking those stories and creating whether it's a video recap or an interview or the story, and they're telling them in great ways, but we're not reaching the audience we want to, enough of the audience that we want to. So we're elevating that.
All right, I can't let you go without asking you about your experience at William & Mary.
Yeah,
it's a great school, right? It's the second oldest college in the country.
Chartered in 1693, second oldest in the country.
Yeah, and known for extremely high standards academically.
Yeah. When I was applying to schools, I graduated from a Richmond City school. I was again, we lived in a part of Chesterfield that got annexed, and so I went to John F. Kennedy High School, which is no more, but it's in the building that was Armstrong, and there was Armstrong Kennedy.
Yeah.
I applied for schools, and I'd done well academically. I'd supplemented some by doing some college courses while in high school and that kind of thing. And so I had some nice options when I applied. But William & Mary just fit me. It wasn't a huge school. I didn't want a gargantuan, large, school. And I loved what I felt when I went to William & Mary. I did like the academic piece of it. I had a great time there. I mean, I connect with my college friends all the time. We have so many long-lasting friendships, of course, as you do from college. I played, from a sports standpoint, we've started a club volleyball team. And I loved that. I really enjoyed volleyball until my knees got shot because of that accident we talked about. I couldn't play anymore.
Oh, your knees? Yeah, I was going to say.
They got all contorted and all that stuff. But anyway, I loved playing volleyball. And I was never great, but we had a great time. And we would always scrimmage with the women's team. There wasn't a men's team, but we started a club team. I just had a great 4 years there. It was not easy academically, and I'd done pretty well in high school, but everybody there had done really well in high school, and so the scale just changes once you're there.
Yeah.
And I did okay academically. I'm not going to share my GPA.
It's hard. It's a hard school.
It is a hard school. I just really enjoyed the pace of it, and we had a good time, maybe too much of a good time too often, but that's part of college, right? And it was for me, at least. My senior year there was amazing. I don't know what you know about the campus there, but when I was there, they had all the dorms, of course, and I'd lived in dorms for the first 3 years. But in senior year, there's a lottery for this group of lodges, and they're standalone homes.
I've never seen the lodges. Yeah.
They're only, I think, one standing now. They've taken them out and put a health center there, but there were, I think, 14 or 15 or something like that. And we got one of those. And so we had, there's 6 of us who lived in this place, and it was 3 bedrooms and a couple of bathrooms and a kitchen and a huge living room and a fireplace and a patio and maid service. And it was the life.
That's ridiculous.
It was wonderful. And we hosted dance parties there all the time, and it was
I had no idea those existed.
We'd go play volleyball with the women's team, and we was like, "Come on back to the place," and we had a great time there. And they were kind of tucked away in the woods a little bit, and it was a great senior year. Now that I'm this far out of college, I can say that I also, my senior year, my brother-in-law had a sailboat like 45 minutes from William & Mary, so I intentionally scheduled no Friday classes and always found someone to go sailing with me on Friday afternoons, which is great. I had a lot of fun.
There are very few things that are better than being on the water.
I love it. I mean, I always have loved that. And I don't know where it came from exactly. I mean, my dad and my brothers and my mom and my grandparents were huge fisher people. I mean, they loved to fish. I don't love fishing, but I was out there a lot and maybe fell in love with being out there but I love to go out. And again, I've talked about sailing with my buddy up in New England, and we sailed in other places. But yeah, William & Mary is great. It's I love the school. I go back for a long time. Right after school, I didn't go back for homecomings, but for the big ones, we go back now, and I've had some big ones. I mean, I've been out for quite a while, but some of my closest friends, obviously through college. So.
Well, I have to say this about William & Mary. There's no campus in the country or in the world that's like that campus. It's pretty small.
It is small.
It's really small. It's shockingly small.
As it goes, yeah.
And the city of Williamsburg, there's no place like that on earth. And so you found this little nook that becomes an amazing college, surrounded by some of our oldest history in the country.
Yeah, it's beautiful in its own way. I mean, it is not for everyone either. I mean, some people, my sons looked at it and went, I don't think so. And that's fine. No worries at all. You got to go where it's comfortable. But at that point, as I said, the smallness of it was appealing to me, and the beauty of it was cool. And I found this out. I didn't go there for this reason, but Route 5 goes right down to Williamsburg, and I rode my bike back and forth a lot. It was probably crazy dangerous, and I'm so glad that Cap Trail is there now, because I ride that now, but it's removed from the road. And Route 5, there's not a lot of shoulder, and it was probably ridiculously dangerous. But
or if any shoulder.
Probably not. I mean, pretty much none.
Yeah.
But it's a beautiful ride, and so I did that a bunch, which is another appealing thing there. And again, I studied music. It wasn't my major. I mean, my major was biology, and with a minor in music and a minor in anthropology. So I'm using none of that except my music.
I was going to say, you were kind of all over the place.
Welcome to my world. And we're just beginning. But I am all over the place. But I love the work I did there. I love what I learned through. At one point, I was considering becoming a doctor, and after I learned about from other doctors, just the amount of time that you have to put in to get there, and then once the specialty that I was going into, you would never see your family. But of course, now I only work 70 or 80 hours a week, so I can't imagine having to work. Turned out pretty much the same timing, but I switched away from that pretty fast.
Over the next, this sounds like a corny question, so I apologize up front for the phrasing, but over the next, 3, 5, 7 years, what do you hope to see happen with Special Olympics Virginia?
I'm really excited about our growth in our Unified Champions arena. And again, unified for us means pairing people with and without disabilities on the same team, leadership team, basketball team. And we've seen we'd seen tremendous growth before COVID, and of course it dropped then, as many things did. But we are building back up. We are reaching 500,000 students across the state. And our programming, again, pairs those students at a time when these lessons of inclusion and respect and unity are so important. It pairs them with people who are different than them, and they have that same experience that I had back in that day when I showed up in the Robbins Center and, oh, this is a really cool combination of people, and the interaction is just kind of magic. So we see that happening more and more, because those students are going to be our future leaders. Those students are going to be the ones who make decisions that are going to impact all of us. And I think it's really important, really excited that we're growing that. I give tremendous credit to our staff who's doing that. We have some amazing staff and volunteers and school administrators and some government officials who are helping us grow that. But I just, I often will go to those events and I intentionally go a little bit stealth because I want to hear what the students are saying. And so we'll have something called a Little Feet Meet. And this is sort of a end of season field day, because
I just went to one here in Hanover County.
Perfect, yeah. Right? So you know it. End of season celebration. It's not a competition. It's not really sports. It's sports skills for younger athletes. It's about building the community as much as it's about building the skills. And often a football team will be volunteering, and I just listen to them as they walk into this place, and I literally hear this over and over again. Hey, man, I don't know anybody with disabilities. Can they communicate with you? It's okay to joke with them. I like they're afraid of what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. And within 10 minutes max, usually 3 to 4 minutes, they are chatting and they're connecting and they're laughing and they're joking, and that difference is just gone. That fear of I don't know about this person is gone. That is that magic feeling again of I don't need to be afraid of any difference that you have. And I thought I did because I don't know anything about you. That's the whole point. Get to know something about somebody else and you can connect. And so I'm excited about the growth of that. And it's growing amazingly well. We're also, we're just having more athletes participate. And, I'd love to grow our program in that way. Again, all credit to our staff and our board and our young professional boards and so many volunteers who give their time day in and day out. Just incredibly generously give of their day and their time and their talent. But I see that we're just growing. We're having more people participate. Our summer games is a higher registration. We had to move one of our facilities because of the number of athletes who want to come. So we're excited about that growth because it just means that the work that I've been spouting about all this time is just growing and is reaching more people. I'm excited about how more and more people are understanding that Special Olympics is for everyone. For all the time it was for those athletes with disabilities, and it absolutely still is. But it's also for you and it's for me. And you can come and volunteer. You can come and play on a team. You can come and cheer people on. You can come and you can support financially. There's so many things you can do. And so more and more people are getting that. And again, thanks to our athletes with their messaging and the understanding that there's a place for everyone at Special Olympics. You don't have to have a specific disability. I contend that we all have our own type of disability one way or another, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
So, but to be part of Special Olympics, whoever can get there can be part of it. So, I'm excited to see that needle moving. There's so much going on. I mean, we are, there's just so many things. We're growing our sports. We're growing our school programs. We're growing our inclusive health program. We're expanding that past just summer games. I've been to a lot of healthy athlete centers around the globe at these World Games, and not to be too braggadocious, but ours is the best. And it's thanks again to Dave Pawlowski, who's on our team, and how he's connected with those clinicians, and we've connected with the resources who have helped us just elevate that experience in ways that again is changing and saving lives. And so that's just a great thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. I don't think you're being braggadocious. You don't strike me as that kind of person.
Well, I'm bragging on the people who are doing it. I don't claim credit for it. So.
No, well, but you are representing Virginia.
Yes, I am. Yeah.
This popped in my head. My phrasing will maybe a little awkward. Out of the entire, and I don't mean to use a term that is so cold, but out of the intellectually disabled demographic, how many actually participate in Special Olympics by percentage, roughly?
Yeah, I think that the national numbers, like 3% of the population, has intellectual disability, and we have maybe a third of that.
Okay.
I don't know the actual number, but it's by no means everyone. And we understand that it's a choice. I mean, not everybody with intellectual disability wants to be part of Special Olympics. That's fine. It may not be your place, but it is by far not the full number of people with intellectual disability.
Yeah.
But I think the last number I've heard is that about 3% of the population. Now, I will tell you that, as we understand differently about the autism spectrum, there are more people who can be included under the definition of eligibility. Again, anybody can be, but as far as the technical eligibility, more and more people are being included in that way.
Well, a third is actually kind of high because over the entire population of the world or the country or the state, I don't think they're a third of the population participating athletically. Maybe I'm off.
3%. Yeah, not a
No,
third.
you're saying a third of the demographic.
I got you. Yeah.
I don't think it's a third of the overall population.
No, I don't think so either. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
All right, let's close with telling me about your family.
My, not my siblings, but my family.
We can go there too. I mean,
Well, we talked a little bit.
Given the
siblings.
number of siblings, it might take a while.
Well, first, we've talked about my siblings and how connected we are and the ways that we're connected. I also have two sons who I adore. My older son is 30 years old. My younger son is 26. Both just kind humans, both brilliant humans, both just, genuinely caring humans. And so for that, I'm really proud. My older son has pursued a career with computer science and artificial intelligence, and he is wrapping up his postdoctorate work at Rice University. He's a UVA undergrad. He did his work there, got a double degree there, and then went to Cornell to earn his master's and PhD in computer science, and then has done his postdoctorate out at Rice University in Houston.
So a pretty dumb guy.
He enjoys his work and is very passionate about it. And again, both my sons are, in my opinion, are brilliant in their own ways. He loves what he's doing there. He's a hard worker, and recently accepted a position to go to Boston Dynamics, and is excited about that. He spent some time in Boston before, likes the city, and so I'm excited that it'll be a slightly easier flight away. He moves there soon, and I'm going to be up in that part of the world about the time he moves in, so I'll check in on him then. So I'm really excited for him for this next opportunity. And then my younger son lives here in town in Richmond, and works with Riverside Outfitters. So
nice.
He takes kids and does camps with them. And
he's living the life too.
Oh, absolutely. It's important to him to connect to what's the nature around us, and so he's sharing that with kids and other people. But particularly he does a lot of work with the camps with kids and takes them. Whether it's tree climbing, he does a lot of work with tree climbing. I think they do some rock climbing. He's on the river a lot. He does it with Riverside Outfitters, and he's also working with Blue Sky Fund, which is more of an urban-based program, but also wants to get kids out of the city and out of that urban environment into nature. And so
it's healthier out in nature. Right?
Oh, it is, and it's really important to him to do that. And so he and I have grown really close over the last few years. He lives with me right now, and I'm happy for that. People are sometimes wondering why kids ought to be moved out and on their own. I think kids should be where they need to be, and I'm just really happy. And I think extended family. I mean, there are lots of cultures, and here comes the anthropologist out in me, but there are lots of cultures where extended family live under the same roof, and so I think that's a beautiful thing. And so he's here in town, and I then have a grand dog who lives with us, and she's great. She's a very centering spirit for us, and just a sweetheart, and sometimes a goofball.
Yeah.
So that's my family, my two sons and I, and I'm divorced and have been for a while. I enjoy life. I would say, we talked earlier about how I feel that the global Special Olympics group is my family. I have some great friends here in town and some great friends around the country and globe that I consider family. I lean on them like family. They lean on me like family. We connect in a way that feels like family.
At least the way family should be. Yeah.
Well, that's fair. Yeah. I mean, family. It can be a lot of things, but at least the way family should be is a good way to put it. So I'm really, really fortunate with a great group of family, and chosen and biological.
Well, David, I thank you for all the work you've done with Special Olympics over the last 37 years. I thank you in advance for all the stuff you're going to do. I'm a little jealous of all the travel you get to do and all the magic you get to experience, but you didn't hesitate at all to do this with me, and so I appreciate you for being so open to doing something.
Well,
like
I'm
this.
grateful for lots of reasons. The opportunity to have done that work for 37 years plus, and the opportunity to come here and talk about it. You've helped me revisit some things that I hadn't thought about for a while, so it's been fun. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to wherever you listen to podcasts. We'd also really appreciate if you'd rate and review us. You can find us at scodupodcast.com.